Back in the 80s, 90s, and maybe even the early 2000s, life for Europe's hard-working middle class looked very different. If you had a steady job and lived within your means, you could buy a house and pay it off in 10 to 20 years. You could afford a new car without drowning in monthly payments. A holiday abroad wasn't a luxury. It was normal. And retirement? That was something you didn't have to worry about. Fast forward to today. We've got 70-inch TVs, Netflix, smartphones, and TikTok. Just enough distraction to keep us from questioning the system. But behind the screens, Europe, especially the EU, feels like it's falling apart. Prices have shot through the roof, but the income from our 9-to-5 jobs? It's barely moved. The middle class is being squeezed dry by taxes and inflation. Hard work doesn't pay off like it used to, and the pension we're supposed to get one day? Let's be honest, it's a joke. More like a ticket to poverty. Yes, times are tough, but here's the good news. There's a way to fight back. And it starts with investing. More specifically, investing in dividend stocks and dividend ETFs. That's what this channel is all about, dividend investing and the mindset that goes with it. And today's video is exactly that, a mindset video. I want to share 5 reasons why dividend investing might make sense for us Europeans. Some might seem obvious, others might make you stop and think. Truth is, a lot of European countries are in serious trouble. Since I'm from Germany, I'll use it as a representative example for Europe. It's a central EU country, and frankly, one of the places where the problems are most visible. If your country's doing better, great. But I believe sooner or later, we're all heading in the same direction. So let's be real, no one's coming to save us. We have to take control of our own financial future. All right, let's dive into the first reason why dividends might be a smart move for you. Life keeps getting more expensive. I mentioned it earlier, prices have exploded in recent years. But one thing really stood out to me. Grocery prices have basically doubled since the pandemic. That's like 15% inflation per year. And it's not just food, everything costs more. Now let me ask you, has your income gone up by 15% per year since the pandemic? No? Then you're like most people. We've all become poorer in real terms. Or to put it differently, our work is worth less than it used to be. Why is that? Inflation plays a huge role. In times of crisis, like the pandemic or the financial crash, the European Central Bank prints money to patch things up quickly. But when there's more money in circulation, each euro loses value and prices go up. That's what we call inflation. Meanwhile, governments benefit. With high inflation, they can pay back their debts with money that's worth less than what they borrowed. In other words, inflation is a silent tax, because we're the ones paying off the debt. But here's the twist. Inflation can actually be good for investors. Why? Because when prices rise, so do the values of real assets, like property and stocks. That's why it's so important to stay invested. And this is where dividends come in. First of all, dividends are extra income you don't have to work for. When life gets more expensive, it's a relief to have an additional income stream that helps cover the rising costs. If you hold solid dividend stocks or ETFs, those payouts tend to grow over time, often faster than inflation. That's a big deal. It means you can earn passive income that keeps up with inflation while your regular 9-to-5 job loses value year after year. A quick like and subscribe helps the channel reach more investors like you. All right, let's move on to the next reason why dividends might be worth your attention. Hard work doesn't pay off anymore. I don't know how it is in your country, but in Germany, working can feel like both a blessing and a curse. If you can't, or simply don't want to, work, the state will support you with enough money to get by. But if you do work a normal 40-hour week, after taxes and deductions, you often end up with only a little more than someone who doesn't work at all. And later, when retirement comes, the state pension isn't much different from social assistance. Strange, isn't it? Of course, when the state provides support, the money ultimately comes from the middle class. So in practice, it's the working population that carries the cost, even for those who decide not to work. For work to really pay off in Germany, you need to earn well above the average income. But the more you earn, the more you have to give back. Even at 5,000 euros a month, about 40% is taken away before you ever see it. That's frustrating. Friends, let's be clear. Deductions won't go down. They'll just keep rising, rising, and rising, squeezing us harder every time. So what's the alternative? My answer? Dividends. Passive income through dividend stocks, or even better, dividend ETFs, is the simplest way to build income streams. Buy once, hold, and then collect cash. If you start building a dividend portfolio early, you can gradually replace part of your paycheck with dividend payouts. Over time, it's not unrealistic to cut down your 9-to-5 job to a 4-day week, or even 3. And that brings 2 big advantages. First, you work less and enjoy more free time. Second, you earn less taxable income, which means fewer deductions. Think about it. We don't need to work harder, we need to work smarter. And that leads us straight into the next reason why dividends might be the smartest move for you. Tax advantages. You've probably heard the saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And honestly, I think there's truth to it. The poor often don't know how to grow their money, and inflation slowly eats away at what little they have. The rich, on the other hand, understand how money works, and they use that knowledge to their advantage. And let's be clear, I don't despise them for it. They're not doing anything wrong. In fact, they're doing everything right. So why not learn from them? Here's the reality. In Germany, and in most other countries, regular 9-to-5 work is heavily taxed. On top of regular income taxes, there are additional social contributions, which, in practice, are just more taxes. And these deductions keep climbing year after year. You can earn more each year, but in the end, it often feels like you're stuck in the same place. Meanwhile, the wealthy own assets. Their businesses or shares in other businesses, stocks. And here's the difference. Profits and dividends from stocks are taxed at about 25% in Germany. With ETFs, the tax burden is reduced. You end up paying roughly 18% overall. So think about it. You can work 40 hours a week and hand over half your income, or you can let your investments work for you and pay only 18 to 25%. Which option sounds better? And here's the best part. Stocks and ETFs aren't reserved for the rich. We, the middle class, can buy them too. So why not build a solid dividend portfolio and create a steady cash flow? That income stream is taxed far less than your regular job, where you're trading your lifetime for money. Think about that. The real goal should be to make our money work harder than we do. Only then will we be able to work less and truly enjoy more free time. And speaking of free time, let's dive into the next big advantage of dividends. More free time. In our 20s, and maybe even in our 30s, we're still highly motivated. We enjoy our jobs, we push ourselves, and we think that's how life is supposed to be. But after 10 or 20 years, reality hits. Work drains our energy and eats up a huge part of our lifetime. Suddenly, there's barely any time left for family, friends, hobbies, or simply relaxing. The older we get, the more we realize that time is limited, and wasting it all on work doesn't make sense. we start questioning whether our jobs really matter, whether they give us meaning or fulfillment. And here's a hard truth. If you stop showing up tomorrow, the work will go on without you. You'll be replaced. And 2 weeks later, nobody will even remember you were there. I've seen this happen many times. So it's no surprise that many people ask themselves how they can escape the hamster wheel, at least partially. Some dream of cutting back, working 1 or 2 days less each week. Others even imagine an early exit from the workforce altogether. But how can that be possible? In my view, a stable and regular cash flow from dividends is the perfect solution. That's why it's so important to start investing early and to build up strong savings rates. Personally, I only began dividend investing around 2020. But even with the cash flow I've built so far, I could already afford to work a few days less each month if I wanted to. And that's a great feeling. My goal for the next 5 to 10 years is clear: to move toward a 4-day week, or maybe even 3. And yes, that's realistic. Dividends aren't just extra money. They're a way to buy back your time. To wrap things up, perhaps the strongest argument for dividends is this: you can't rely on pensions. Demographic change, rising government debt, and complete political failure are just a few reasons why retirement in Germany is practically the same as poverty. We'll be forced to work until 70 or even 80, only to end up with a pension that's just a few €100 more than someone who never worked at all. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but honestly, only a little. That's the reality here in Germany. In other European countries, the situation might look slightly better, but one thing is clear. Pensions might be enough to survive, but not enough to live. And if you don't prepare, you're screwed. Investing is one way to fight back. Many people put money into an MSCI World portfolio and plan to sell shares later. That's a valid and reasonable strategy. But the approach I prefer, as you might have guessed, is dividends. With dividends, I never have to sell my cash cow, and I don't lose sleep during economic crises when markets drop. Instead, I build a dividend stock or dividend ETF portfolio that over time provides me with steady cash flow. Personally, I'm a fan of dividend ETFs because they're easy to manage and don't tempt you into constant buying and selling like individual stocks do. That's why I'm convinced this is the best long-term strategy for me. But that's just my opinion. Do you prefer stocks or ETFs? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, back to pensions. Imagine you've built a strong dividend portfolio that delivers reliable cash flow. If you're still working, you could consider retiring earlier. Even the thought that it's possible brings huge relief to the soul. And if you do decide to work until the official retirement age, whatever the reason, your dividends could still significantly boost that tiny pension. Personally, I see the state pension as a small bonus that might arrive in 30 or 40 years, but I don't rely on it. My goal is clear: to build, over the long term, more cash flow from dividends than from pension payments. All right, those were my reasons why dividends matter. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.